As you may or may not know, I have a Patreon page, and what that enables you to do is give me money. Now, lately, I've been doing events again, and events also give me money, but there are a finite amount of hours in the day, and so as a result of that, I have been somewhat negligent to the people that give me money on Patreon, right? And I've been taking money from people that give me money for event work, and that's not fair. And as a result, some people have cancelled their Patreon subscriptions, and that is fair, because I deserve that. Because I've been tardy with my promises and I haven't done things I said I was going to do in the time frame I promised to do them, which the irony isn't lost on me. That's essentially how I broke out and made my career, calling out people for doing exactly that. Now, there is a difference. We're not talking lots of money and we're not talking lots of time. I'm about 2-3 months behind on a good day. But that being said, some of my $100 patrons, you have the most right to be upset because you have requested bespoke content, and many of you have not got that bespoke content. If you want an example, by the way, of what $100 can buy you, there's a 2-hour, 40-minute mini documentary about the legacy of Mike Tyson that I put together. It was by the person that paid the $100. The patron kindly said you can put it on YouTube, and other people got to watch it, and people seem to like that. Even though it wasn't about esports, the views on it were quite good. And so today, one of those other requests was, what are the top 5 esports scams of all time? Now, I'm somebody you can ask that because I have been in esports for 20 years. I have worked in multiple esports across that time. And I mean, the big ones, the small ones, I've been in stadiums. I've done the peak most watched CS majors. I have done completely unwatched Fortnite tournaments. I did Hearthstone women's tournaments. I've done lots of things. And of course, all the while I've been doing that, I've been a journalist that exposes scams. So this should be leveraging all of my expertise, and yet I still had to dig deep. And then I thought to myself, instead of just doing a list and making it short, how can I make it connected and anecdotally? And look, Cowardly Cow 69, first time chatter, also says, and you did it all half stoned. I wouldn't say half. If you're half stoned, you're not doing it right. So anyway, I picked some that I think are going to surprise people, because ultimately, is this the top 5 scams? No, it's the ones that I find interesting, that are pretty big and had huge impacts on the industry. And I'm going to do them in, no particular order. Lists with orders are boring. It's so arbitrary, Is 1 that much better than 2? Is 2 that much better than 5? You say so, I don't agree, blah, blah, blah. Who gives a fuck? So let's start. I'll start with an honorable mention. For the life of me, I tried to track down the original email, and I couldn't find it, because I think it was on my Cadred email, and that's obviously long deactivated. But way back when the average prize pool of a LAN was $50,000 if you were lucky, and that was for an S-tier esport, we got invited, Cadred, to be coverage partners. This is another thing you probably don't know about. Coverage partnership. What does that mean? It's interesting, isn't it? There was this concept that went around esports for a few years. It doesn't really exist now, I don't think. But basically what it kind of was is tournament organizers would reach out to esports websites and they would say, want to be our official coverage partner? And what official coverage partner meant was you still had to pay your own way to go to the event. So you were still out of pocket for that, but you would get a level of access that maybe not everyone would get. You would be prioritized for interviews. But the Faustian bargain that you entered into to do those things was that, well, you can't say anything bad. And Cadred was run by people that just wanted clicks and hits, and they just wanted, to, make money off the website. And young, impressionable Richard Lewis, I used to hate being, I don't want to be a coverage partner because I want to tell the truth. I'm a truth teller. I'm so brave. I'm stunning and brave, So I used to, we used to go back and forth a lot on that. But anyway, we got invited to be coverage partners of a LAN in Mexico called Sasaquando. And I've Googled it. I've done every conceivable type of search on the internet, and I cannot find a single mention of it anywhere. It is lost to the essence of time. Sasaquando LAN. And I remember when we got the invite, It was like me, it would have been Corin, it would have been Corin Cole, the great Corin Cole, formerly of SGL and Cadred, would have been Max Silver, the poker player. He was my boss for a time, and a Welsh guy called Felix that we ended up falling out with. And basically, we got this invite all on the same day. And this LAN was mental. This didn't happen in like 2006, right? But they were offering $1 million prize pool in every game that existed that anyone played esports in. Counter-Strike, $1 million. Call of Duty 4, $1 million. Call of Duty 2, I have another $1 million. Just have it. And there was one caveat, right? That if you were a team, you had to sign up and you had to pay in advance. Because scams were not very sophisticated back then, guys. You would be amazed. A number of people got with these scams, actually. This was a very popular method of scam. Pretend you were running a tournament. You've got to buy tickets. I take the ticket money. Don't book the venue. Don't run the tournament. I keep the money. I disappear. That happened a lot. One of the biggest stories. I got nominated for an award for writing a story about a guy that did that when I was at Gotfrag. But anyway, so Sasaquando say, do you want to be coverage partners? We will fly you to Mexico to cover the event when the event happens, the totally real event, where everyone's getting $1 million. All we need you to do is advertise Sasaquando LAN on the front page of Cadred. And the good thing was, like, I mean, the editorial team at Cadred were so savvy about esports bullshit. They were really smart. I mean, we were very often not editorially aligned with what we wanted to publish and what we wanted to say, but privately in the meetings, we all knew, like, this is bullshit. This company's bad. They suck. Da, 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 da. We always agreed in private. It was just, you know, Richard, you can't say that, basically. that came a lot of the time. So they said, listen, all you got to do is advertise it with this little, you know, clickable link so people can come and sign up and pay their money. And we were just like, absolutely not. We will not be doing that. And I remember they got very upset. And they said, how dare you, Sasaquando LAN is going to be the biggest LAN of all time. And you're going to be frozen out of it. And, you know, for a few weeks on the forums and on the various sub-forums that we used to use, everybody was like, oh, is this Sasaquando LAN real? $1 million. It's worth the risk, isn't it? It's worth the risk. It's worth the risk for that kind of money. Yeah, but it's in the middle of fucking nowhere in Mexico, in a place that's never hosted an event for a prize pool that's too good to be true. But what if it is true? Now, the point of that story as a preamble is a lot of these events are Sasaquandos. They're Sasaquandos that you didn't have to pay to enter, but they are Sasaquandos nonetheless. Esports really hasn't moved all that far forward. It is the same shit, broken, stupid, silly industry filled with liars and grifters that it's always been. And with that said, let's take a look at the first thing on my list. This is a good place to start, I think. I'm using an editorial to broadly represent this, written by my old colleague, Jacob Wolf. No longer in esports. We salute you and thank you for your service, brave esports warrior. And this is, of course, talking about the CSGO skin gambling sites. Remember, Roundabanks in the chat. This is the original Banks. It still blows my mind to this day that we don't let's say this, we don't actually have the full story about the skins gambling sites and how it got so pervasive in the space. That's never been explained or released or listed in any detail. There hasn't really been any confessionals or any action around that. This, by the way, would have been prime for like a RICO case in America. And I'll explain why in a moment. No, I'm not just talking about FaZe here. I am talking about the web of interconnected activity that went on around skins gambling that made a lot of people millionaires. And it was all very dodgy. And obviously that money was trickling into esports. But also, like, these sites still exist to this day in some form or another. And I've never understood why Valve aren't interested in, like, why not publicly come out and say, we don't mind? Or why not publicly come out and say, we don't mind this, 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 and this, but we mind this, 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 and this, and we will shut down this, 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 and this, if we see this, 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 and this. Why not do that? Or why not just do like, I mean, and I've suggested this, why do you not just lean into what it is you do? And because ultimately, are loot boxes, are loot crates a million miles away from what these guys are doing? No. Why not just have your own casino on the Steam market? May as well. I mean, shit, if you're going to turn a blind eye to stuff that's going on like this. Now, I talked about this a lot at the time, and all the videos are still up. Obviously, remember, I did the Phantom Lord story. I did a lot of the CSGO Wild stuff. That wasn't actually me. There was a YouTuber called Honor the Call. He's deleted all his original videos, all his original reporting. I don't even know if he's still around. There was also some fucking insane stud guy. He used to be like just bald with shades on called 8 Thoughts. He was always tweeting spicy things, but he was going after the skins gambling websites a lot. I mean, Call of Duty wasn't necessarily in my wheelhouse, but you have to remember how this all got started was the COD guys looked over at what CS had with the not just the skins economy, but we were kind of the bigger event, you know, and Envious and Optic and all these guys, they looked, and FaZe, they looked over and said, look, we'd love to be in that. We'd love to have a team in that and be part of that. And then when they came over and they realized how expensive it could be, some of them, and, you know, to Optic's credit, like, it wasn't them, but certainly it was FaZe, and there was a few dubious things with Envious as well, where players had to promote skins gambling websites. I remember when NBK was on there, quite famously, he, like, had a bunch of, like, really dubious tweets talking about this stuff, and he had, like, some guy adding him, and no. It was, like, really fucked up. Just not what pro players want to do, let alone a guy like, you know, Nathan, who's, like, a really cool guy. So anyway, it was FaZe that really realized that if they wanted to fund the fucking team, and remember, they went on to have the super team, they needed to create their own fucking skins gambling enterprise. And so that's what CSGO Wild was. And remember, they were using influencers to do these fake roles and do these fake videos like T. Martin did. And then they were pushing it further, you know? It was like people were coming to Wild through the FaZe network. It wasn't particularly well age-gated. It was really fucking bad. And you know it's bad because first they registered these companies in like Antigua and all these like offshore places. And so one of the parts that no one ever talked about was these guys all had a meeting. I think it was in Vegas. But a lot of these people that were running these skins casinos, they met up and they wanted to know like how to do it. Like, how did you do it? And they're like, well, we registered here and we did this and we do that and we use this. And as long as we've got provably fair, we can do this. And they all essentially agreed to be like, we won't register in the same places. We won't encroach on your territory. We won't say anything bad about your website. You don't say anything bad about our website. And let's essentially all get rich together. And this is where you end up with things like, you know, Phantom Lord and the CSGO Shuffle and all this other bullshit starts like trickling down. And ultimately, you know, I think about Syndicate and T. Martin, they carried a massive can when people were doing far worse things. Did they misrepresent, like use false advertising? Yeah, but they never rigged any outcomes. They never rigged any roles. You know, they had age protection on their site, as far as I recall, but they're the ones that got the fine from the let me get it right, it's the FCC. But there was like a cartel of people behind the scenes, and they were like fucking all talking to each other. You know, my boy Mo was in there. Obviously, he had the CSGO Diamonds thing where he outed himself as having used the data so he could know the outcome of the roles. We had the whole percent thing with Joris and Phantom Lord, obviously. It was really, really, really bad. And so when that starts bleeding into esports, obviously that's when it's in my world. And the CSGO Wild stuff, it's actually crazy that it was so brazenly done. And then, remember, it was all admitted. And this is why Jacob wrote this piece, because Banks went on a podcast and basically talked about how much they were earning. And so fans of Counter-Strike as an esport might think it's old news that Banks admitted to co-owning CSGO Wild. But after years of denying any ties, to one of the many Counter-Strike skins gambling sites that games developer Valve took legal action against in late 2016 and early 2017, Banks appeared on the Bad News podcast on Sunday, candidly talking about how he and a set of friends learned how to finesse the internet to net about $200,000 a day. Not only did Banks profit significantly from the venture, but he also admitted that he did it to help FaZe pay a $1 million acquisition fee for their professional Counter-Strike team, which they acquired from G2 Esports in early 2016. Now, there is a bunch of stuff that I don't think ever came out from around that time. Without going into it, because it's not really relevant to this topic that we're discussing right now, but I've said this, Banks was simultaneously a bad dude and a victim. I think he did bad things. I think he set a bad example. I think he behaved in a bad way. I think he used his young fan base in for his own ends, and I think that's undeniable. But there were people around him that took advantage of him when he was having problems that he's subsequently talked about. Substance abuse problems, the knock-on effect that takes on your mental health. And I will tell you, the shit around this acquisition here, if the full story was known, it'd blow your mind. I mean, it would really fucking blow your mind. Banks got absolutely fucking wrecked during this time by people around him. And he's never told the full story to my knowledge. I remember one time, it was when I was calling him out, I think it was after he'd smashed up a hotel in Vegas or something. We vaguely knew each other, and he called me on Discord. And it was a strange call. He was like, listen, man, you're saying all these bad things about me and how I'm a scourge. And I just think if you got to know me, you would like me. I'm going, I don't care. I don't want to know you, and I don't want to like you. I don't like you. I don't think you're a good person. Anyway, we got talking, and he said, like, if you ever knew what happened to me and what happened to a lot of us OGs at FaZe, like, we got fucked. We got absolutely fucked. And so I always had a sympathetic ear to that. And I did my own digging into it, and he's right. He's unequivocally right. He was simultaneously villain and victim, if you can believe it. But on the CSGO Wild stuff, certainly villain, and certainly lied about it, kept it clandestine, and then obviously once the legal action happened and the site was, I want to say, it was moved over to new ownership, then shut down. I think that was the order it occurred in. Then it was okay to talk about it on podcasts and kind of laugh and joke about how we funded a CS team's acquisition through this money, which should be an anathema to any true fan. I mean, I'll say I don't have a problem with gambling. I don't care about gambling. I think gambling and sports, it just goes together like tea, coffee and cigarettes. You know what I mean? And yeah, a cigarette is bad for you, but that morning coffee with that morning cigarette, that's a vibe. That's a feeling. But it's got to be regulated in the same way coffee and cigarettes are, and it's got to be an adult thing and an adult choice, and there has to be guardrails. You shouldn't be able to just like put the house, on red and lose everything, and the casino goes, oh, well, sorry, here you go, complimentary drink, but I'm not against it. But the skins gambling stuff was bad. I mean, I saw it. It was really bad. In 2016, it was pretty much kiddie casinos. Like, it just was. And for some reason, everybody wanted the fucking skins. I've never understood it. Pros wanted big inventories, and what started happening was the people that were big bettors that had accrued inventories, they then wanted to get bigger inventories, and a way to get bigger inventories was by using sites like CSGO Lounge to place big bets with multiple accounts, multiple bot accounts, i.e. Steam accounts that have their own inventories and could transfer shit, and you would fix games. And so this was not just like a bad thing in and of itself. It was a bad thing that then intersected with another bad thing. People just got insanely obsessed with accruing skins. And of course, Valve would say, well, it's fine to have a big inventory because you can't cash out. But then, of course, there were sites that enabled you to cash out. And quite famously, there was one site that everybody was using to cash out. And it was essentially like money laundering, mechanically speaking. You're taking money from your skins casino when no one knows the exact number you're making every day, And then you take it to OP Skins, and then you put it in there, and they rizzle, dizzle, lizzle, sell the skins for the money. You take money out the end. And it's impossible that Valve didn't know that was going on, because there'd already been investigations. People used to buy, this is also true, you can look this up. There was organized crime groups in Russia that would use TF2 keys to launder money. You would buy the keys and then you would sell the keys. And then you would get a electronic transaction at the other end into like a PayPal account or a bank account, and then you would, it's not the money or whatever. So that was a thing that was going on. And that was very early into Valve's dipping the toe in the water with case opening and all of that kind of experiment. So anyway, I'll read you and this is a really good summary by Jacob. He's done good work here. Banks said he and his crew paid off a government official in Antigua, a Caribbean island known for being a gambling haven, to obtain an operating license, then purchased an estate mansion in that country. Some of those revelations were reported by YouTuber Honor the Call in mid-2016, but Banks and fellow FaZe co-owner Norden Rain Shat, who was also implicated, denied being owners in the business. That was when, quite famously, Rain was taking these videos from a mansion in Antigua, going, yo, we're just having a good time out here, wherever we may be. And it's like, wait, that's Antigua, that gambling haven, and you're accused of running a gambling website. No, it's not us. Delete the video, Ray. People started creating these gambling sites where you can gamble with these skins, and it's kind of like a grey area because it's a skin in a game and there's no actual real life value to it. Like, the government puts absolutely no value to it, Banks said. We came up with this idea with these kids. I came up with this idea for a different way to do it. We branded it the right way. My motivation for doing it was, at the time, we weren't making enough money to buy a CSGO team. All in, the venture was going to cost $1 million, and we definitely didn't have anything close to that. So my brand, we got to finesse it, and we got to figure out how to buy this team, because in the next 6 months to a year, this team is going to be worth $4 or $5 million. We're not going to be able to get into this game, which in our heads, we needed to be in this game. In the podcast, Banks spoke with little remorse. He talked about wanting to meet young people, such as two Canadian twins named Gage and Zach, with whom he founded CSGO Wild. They had some other businesses. It's all water under the bridge at this point, I guess. And with whom he could learn how to turn internet businesses into millions of dollars. His current FaZe Clan rosters include several successful teenage influencers, including the 14-year-old streamer Ewok, the 13-year-old content creator High Sky, that's the one whose age they lied about, and 15-year-old Fortnite star Mongral. There's kids who are 16 years old who know more about this shit than we do, Banks said. I want internet kids. I want young internet kids. Sometimes these guys, executives like our CEO, they introduce us to people. This guy who is so-and-so and sat at a desk in London for the last 12 years, and he was the head of Monster for Europe or whatever. That shit does not excite me anymore, because those people, 9 times out of 10, don't do shit for us or make an impact. Introduce me to a kid who's 20 years old and figure out how to finesse some algorithm, crazy shit, started on Reddit, and found out how to make $1 million for himself on his laptop. Banks talked about wanting to facilitate young people's ambition and push their skills forward, yet he openly admitted to running a website that drew flack from Valve and government officials alike for scamming minors out of millions of dollars, either from them or their parents. Now, on this note, one of the things that one of the biggest criticisms that was always leveled at these websites was the inappropriate level of age gating. Now, when they first came out, many of them had just a click box, a checkbox. Like, you literally tick the box, I am over 13, right? 13 was the limit, which is crazy to think about, that essentially a casino would be setting the age as low as 13. Like, clearly 18 would be the appropriate limit, right? In most countries. But it wasn't that. And then some didn't have any at all. And that was actually a scam in and of itself, because what they would do is they would let you go on the site, start gambling. You would accrue skins, you would accrue money, and then what they would do is they would say, oh, we need to see a passport or some form of identification before you withdraw the money or withdraw the skins. And they would do a spot ID check. And the spot ID check means, ha ha ha, we knew the whole time you were a fucking kid. And then you don't get your skins, you don't get your money. Now, by the way, one of the dirty secrets about the gambling industry, and this is the gambling industry, this is the regulated gambling industry. One of the reasons why you'll see all of these people go, they're scammers, they're really, really bad. And you go, why is that? Look at Trustpilot. Look at their reviews online. And you go and you look at the reviews. And the reviews are always some guy saying, I won bigly and they wouldn't let me withdraw the money. They said I was in the wrong region, or they made up some story to keep the money. By the way, the mad thing about gambling sites in most countries, certainly this is true in the UK, they're under no legal obligation to pay you your money, by the way. It is literally like a promissory note. It is worthless. And so you gamble on the proviso that as long as you follow their instructions, they'll probably pay you. But if for any reason they dispute the bet, whatever, they can just say no, and you've got no legal recourse. So this gets a lot of people. And by the way, they will do things like this. This is just something that happens all the time. You might place a bet on a fixed game. You might get lucky and you might win, and the game gets cancelled and the bet gets returned. And you go, but I won. And they go, nah, but it was a fixed game, sorry. And you go, but I didn't know that. And you go, well, yep, tough shit, sorry. Another thing that can happen, you can win too much. This has happened to a lot of people. You win, and they go, we're shutting you down. Sorry. Your account is now frozen. You go, what? And then they will make a deal with you, and they'll offer you part of it, right? They'll say, listen, you were winning too much. We don't think you were betting in good faith. So what we'll do is, you've got 50 grand in your account. We'll give you 20. And you go, but they're my winnings. and they go, look, take it or leave it. There's so many different iterations of this story, and the skins guys were no different. If they could finesse you, find a way to not pay out the skins, they absolutely would. And there were so many stories about this. But as I said, when people go, oh, this gambling site that sponsors esports is really bad, look at their trust review. Go look at any of them. Go look at any of the big gambling websites. Do it right now. Go on Trustpilot, whatever the fuck it's called. Look them up. You will find 2-star reviews, you'll find 1-star reviews talking about how they're not getting their money, and that you will even have staff members replying to them going, sorry, yep, we will not pay you in these circumstances. And that's that. That is the end of the conversation. So people don't know that about the gambling industry, I think, because a lot of people don't have experience with gambling. They've never looked at it beyond, haha, I just won. You know, they don't think about the business, the mechanics, the apparatus, the legality, the licensing. They don't think about any of that stuff. But anyway, yes. The other thing that was definitely happening at this time was, and I will never understand why this would be necessary for skins websites, but there were some that had credit card access, bank card access. You could literally have that to buy. Because they weren't just betting sites. They would you could get markets as well and buy the skins. But also, I mean, kids would just go on Steam, buy shit off the marketplace to use in the casinos as well. And so there was one of the things that came up in a lot of the lawsuits, a lot of the class actions, were kids going, I was addicted to gambling, I was underage, I stole my mother's credit card, the old joke about, mommy's credit card. Well, it was real. It was definitely happening. I mean, it happened many such cases. And so obviously you're not even supposed to have a Steam account under 13, which, by the way, thinking about it, why did they set the age at 13? Well, you're not meant to have a Steam account under 13. So we're not gambling, guys. This is just a fun little game that you can play. But yeah, there's all sorts you can do. People, yeah, you can buy Steam gift cards and use the money to get skins. And so, kids were getting hooked. And you could tell. You could tell people were getting hooked on this shit. Pro players were getting hooked on this shit. We just had all this stuff with fucking Jacob recently, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt for fucking skins. And then graduating to the harder stuff of gambling, which, of course, was also the logical off-ramp. Because a lot of these skins websites, right, it wasn't just the game. The skins were casino chips. You would play coin flips. Who's betting on a coin flip? What the fuck is this? Coin flips, roulette, all the classic fucking casino games, blackjack style games, like just mental. And so you could tell it was bad and going to go to bad places. And obviously, for people like Banks, and I'm using Banks essentially as the face of this because he's the guy that went on a podcast and pretty much just admitted it all, where a lot of other people either didn't say anything or were held accountable or apologized, But anyway, it says, it's as if YouTube, Twitch, or whatever platform isn't enough. That mansion, those cars, that Rolex, none of it is enough. Banks and others wanted more and drew some of their profits from kids who didn't know what they were doing and later became addicted to gambling on skins. It's almost like we've forgotten the YouTubers and streamers who funded and ran these Counter-Strike skins gambling websites across 2015 and 2017. They've continued to have successful and wealthy lives, and in some cases, they have pumped the world full of positive news releases about how great they are for giving back even to children. I'll skip ahead because he talks about Syndicate here. And he was volunteering with Make-A-Wish to kind of atone for what happened with CSGO Lotto. Talks about the T. Martin thing. This is when T. Martin was like, hey, everyone, I'm look at me and my fucking exotic island retreat. Anyway, there's a trend here. Most of these people don't come from Counter-Strike. I don't want to be a gatekeeper, because I hate to see that happen somewhat frequently in the CSGO community, but T. Martin, Syndicate, and Banks came from other games, Call of Duty in their cases. They use CS as a vehicle to make millions in profits, yet because the government didn't come down on them very hard, we go about our lives as if nothing happened. They still make millions every year from YouTube partnerships and merchandise, and clearly in Banks' case, he couldn't care less about the kids he hurt. In his opinion, it was just finessing the internet. And so this is still one of those things that we just sort of swept under the carpet, like an insane dark chapter in Counter-Strike history that led to a rise, not just in like gambling addiction and that stuff, but also like match fixing, skins being used as a black market economy. Remember, this was all pre-crypto, right? This was all pre-crypto as well. Crypto was kind of just like getting into the mainstream while this was kind of happening. Essentially, when Valve made skins in TF2, they did invent a cryptocurrency. And so there's a ton of stories behind the scenes about skin stuff that like will never come out. But you have a favorite player, they fixed the game for skins. You have a favorite player, they stole skins from someone. You have a favorite player, it's like they worked in conjunction with one of these skins casinos and got to play with house money and build up an inventory. You can tell there's so many of these stories that like Jacob, is just like one of many. And so it ultimately ravaged the scene, and they got away with it. And everyone that participated ultimately got fucked and got shafted. So I'm definitely putting this on the list. This, for me, there's a book to be written about this. I don't know who it would be. It would probably have to be me. Like, I'm probably the last person left that covered all of this from start to finish. But it's insane. If people knew the complete story of how it all went down, the conspiracy that it wasn't just, let's all make skins gambling websites, and we're just doing it accidentally at the same time. It was a fucking conspiracy. It was everybody in this line of work was talking to everybody else. Everyone that had a trick or an edge would share the knowledge, because it was simply about hoovering money out of people's pockets and getting away with it while it was in a fucking grey area, as my good friend Banks puts it. So anyway, that's one. That's one on the list. Next, let's go back in time. What about an entire organization being funded by stolen money? Well, I mean, many such cases, I guess, but for now. But I'm taking you back to 2013. And this was about Moscow 5. This guy here is called Dmitry Smilyanets. Obviously, you remember Moscow 5, right? They were a big org. They were a good fucking org. Like, again, let's do it. Let's see. Just for concept. Right, here you go. There's Moscow 5. Back in the day, 2011. They had the old Alex Ich, Diamond Prox, League of Legends. Right, so you had that. They were active in Counter-Strike as well, of course. 1.6. Going back, here they are, 2011. Let's get the 1.6 roster up. You'll know these guys. Remember Doja, Fox, the brothers. They had a Dota 2 team as well, obviously, because they're Russian. And it's a big game out there. And again, they got that one a little bit later. Here it is. So, had a lot of players, won some trophies, competed across multiple titles. A very successful MGO. And they did it, by the way, without a lot of fucking sponsors, right? People were like, yeah, Moscow 5 don't have a lot of sponsors. Very similar setup, actually, to Gambit, if people remember. Where one of the funny stories about Gambit always was, they had this random Pringles sponsorship, and yet no one could ever find anyone at Pringles to ever say, yeah, we sponsor them. No one knew who they were. Fine. Do you want to stop them having your logo on their... No? Okay, my bad. Anyway, back to Moscow 5. So, they've got multiple teams competing in multiple fields. Some of them successfully. And I've met this guy. I've met this guy. I've talked to this guy on more than one occasion. In 2013, this guy was arrested by fucking Interpol officers at Machine Gun Point in Amsterdam. This guy used to turn up to events, and you would just see him at events, and he would be very flamboyant, and he'd be paying for shit with credit cards and buying people drinks and having a good time. Let's have a read. Dmitry Didym's Smilyanets, the former leader of the pro team Moscow 5, has been officially charged with a computer hacking conspiracy and conspiracy to commit wire fraud, along with 3 other Russians and a Ukrainian. According to the US government, Smilyanets and company stole more than 160 million credit and debit card numbers. That's not the amount of money, that is the numbers. Now, as I'll show you with an official Department of Justice release, it's considered the single biggest act of credit card number theft in history. And it was funding a fucking esports org. But just before we get to that, holy shit, what an industry. It's actually funny to look back at this stuff. Let's read this. For it made the Washington Post. For an alleged Russian hacker, a visit to Amsterdam is a costly trip. Also, look at this fucking haircut. That's his lawyer, apparently. Jesus Christ, I couldn't be represented by a man with that hairline. And I'm saying that with my hairline. Like, enough's enough, buddy. Anyway, at noon on June 28th, 2012, Vladimir Drinkman, what a great name, targeted as one of America's most wanted cyber criminals, and his wife hustled into a cab, pulling away from their Amsterdam hotel. They'd just been tipped off the police were onto them, but an unmarked police car blocked their getaway. The Russian was handcuffed and arrested on charges of helping to mastermind what has been called the largest criminal hacking scheme ever prosecuted in the United States. This week, after a protracted extradition proceeding, a Dutch court ruled that Drinkman will be sent to the United States to stand trial. If convicted, he could face up to 30 years in prison. He is alleged to be part of a ring whose actions, prosecutors said, have caused more than $300 million in losses and led to countless stolen identities. The trail to an Amsterdam hotel took years to construct. The Secret Service at first didn't know Drinkman was in the Netherlands. Their target was one of his comrades. I love how they've used comrades. Naughty. That's naughty, Washington Post, but fair enough, I'm going to allow it. Their target was one of his comrades. Or comrade. Dmitry Smilyanets, a 31-year-old alleged cyber trafficker of stolen data who was also implicated in the high-profile hacks. In 2004, the agency shut down the criminal forum known as Dumps Market, an online bazaar for the trafficking of stolen credit data. Agents in its cyber intelligence section cached screenshots of members' messages and began logging names and other identifying details. In the forum, agents noted a hacker named Scorpo, Sam's favourite hacker, whom they would soon link to Drinkman. But Scorpo stopped using the handle in 2004, and Drinkman fell off their radar screens. Investigators scoured files stored in his computer, including records of his online chats with other hackers. They noticed 2 Russians who went by the online monikers Annex and Grig. In further research, investigators turned up an associate nicknamed Smee. Most of the group kept low profiles, but Annex was by far the most security conscious. We never thought we would ever identify, let alone catch Annex, not ever, recalled one former official who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss the investigation. Smiljanets, aka Smee, who lived in Moscow, led a much more public life. I'll fucking say. He ran a successful online gaming team called the Moscow 5 that travelled for international competitions. His Twitter accounts, Dididums, had more than 14,000 followers. He also has an account on VK, Russia's version of Facebook, and one on Facebook, the real Facebook. Unbeknownst to the Secret Service, as they continued to probe Gonzalez's ring of acquaintances, by 2007 the American had returned to crime. He and his associates, including Grigg, Annex and Smee, carried off major intrusions into Heartland, Hannaford and other companies, officials said. In their ring, everyone had a role. To gain entry, steal data, sell it, like an Ocean's 11 team, the official said, referring to the movie about a highly coordinated heist of Las Vegas casinos. Grigg would make the initial hack into a system. Once the door was open, Annex was able to get further into the network, package things, and exfiltrate, the official said. Smiljanets would then sell the data through online bazaars. Once they caught on to Gonzalez, the authorities indicted him. In 2009, they charged Gonzalez, who pleaded guilty and is in prison, and two co-conspirators identified publicly as Hacker 1 and Hacker 2, known to the Secret Service as Annex and Grigg. Investigators hoped to unmask them through Smiljanets. We knew if we bagged him, if he cooperated, he would be a great deal of information. So they watched and they waited. In late June 2012, they got their chance. Smiljanets posted on Facebook a smiling photo of himself in front of the iconic I Amsterdam sign near the Rijksmuseum, or Rijksmuseum, I don't know how to pronounce it, not Dutch, sorry mate. Rijksmuseum sounds a bit dodgy, unless it is indeed that, but whatever. He also posted a number of photos that included location tags. Perfect. The ideal co-conspirator. Secret Service agents took the information and began to plot out all the hotels in the area, several hundred. They narrowed the list down to about 50, and on June 26 they began dialing. We got down to the number 5 or 6 on the list, and the person who answered the phone said, "Yes, Mr. Smiljanets is here." I could do a voice. "Yes, Mr. Smiljanets is here, but it's the middle of the night. Do you want us to wake him up?" Oh, no, you were Dutch. It was more like, "Yes, Mr. Smiljanets is here, but it's the middle of the night. Do you want us to wake him up?" That's how Dutch people speak, innit? Anyway, the official recalled. We said no and hung up. The Americans then called their counterpart in the Dutch National High-Tech Crime Unit, a police agency that has Secret Service personnel embedded in it. The next morning, on June 27th, Dutch police went to the Manor Hotel. Staff confirmed Smiljanets was there with his wife, and by the way, they said Smiljanets had rented 2 rooms. The guest in the other room, Mr. Vladimir Drinkman. It was a pivotal moment, recalled the law enforcement official. We recognised we had a potentially significant cybercriminal available for apprehension. Agents knew Drinkman was Scorpo, and although Scorpo apparently had been active in years, they figured that anyone travelling with Smiljanets was someone of interest, so they fired up their database. Tucked away in their archive was a screenshot dating back to 2004 from the Dumps Market Forum. They found a line in Russian, a message from Scorpo to the forum administrator requesting a nickname change to Annexian. At that moment, we knew we had Annex. Yeah, well done, you cracked the case, Serpico. Then, on June 28th, 8:30 a.m., Dutch police, accompanied by Secret Service agents, arrived at the hotel. They arrested Smiljanets, who was on a tour bus about to depart for Belgium. And by the way, I have a strong suspicion, but it's locked in my brain that it's been bombarded with a lot of chemicals. But I'm pretty sure he was in Amsterdam ahead of a Benelux LAN event, which I can't remember what it would have been called. But I'm pretty sure they were going to a LAN, because I remember people at that LAN telling me, "Did you hear about this?" I'm pretty sure, but I'm probably wrong, because the timeline gets lost in the sauce, you know. But anyway, they had no grounds to detain his wife, who frantically began to make calls. She reached her husband's driver in Moscow, who called Drinkman's wife with news of the arrest. Drinkman rang the front desk and called for a cab, official said, but didn't get farther than the back seat. He didn't resist. It was calm and smooth. And just like that, Moscow 5 was shut down, essentially. That was the end of that. They did keep going till 2015 somehow. I don't really know what was going on there. But the fabulous, flamboyant, insane Moscow 5 was shut down. And honestly, we didn't really hear all that much about it, like what it might have meant for the esports. This is back in a time, in like 2013, when people didn't really want to touch this type of story because they were scared about getting sued or scared about getting something wrong or whatever it might be. And so, here it is. 2018. It took all of this time to compile the information, do the trial, arrive at sentencing, and here it is. 2 Russian nationals sentenced to prison for massive data breach conspiracy. Vladimir Drinkman, 37, of Syktyvkar, nailed that, and Moscow, can pronounce that one, Russia, can do that too, previously pleaded guilty before U.S. District Judge Jerome B. Simandl of the District of New Jersey to 1 count of conspiracy to commit unauthorized access of protected computers and 1 count of the conspiracy to commit wire fraud. He was sentenced to 144 months in prison. Dmitry Smilyanets, 34, of Moscow, previously pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud in a manner affecting a financial institution and was sentenced to 51 months and 21 days in prison time served. Both men pleaded guilty in September 2013, and the judge imposed the sentences today in Camden Federal Court. These defendants operated at the highest levels of illegal hacking and trafficking of stolen identities. They used their sophisticated computer skills to infiltrate computer networks, steal information, and sell it for a profit. Perpetrators of some of the largest data breaches in history. These defendants posed a real threat to our economy, privacy, and national security, and that cannot be tolerated. Drinkman and Smilyanets not only stole over 160 million credit card numbers from credit card processors, banks, retailers, and other corporate victims, they also used their bounty to fuel a robust underground market for hacked information. While mega breaches like these continue to affect millions of individuals around the world, hackers and would-be hackers should know the Department of Justice will use all available tools to identify, arrest, and prosecute anyone who attacks the networks on which businesses and their customers rely. And so ultimately, he's just out and about now because he only did 51 months and 21 days and 144 months. Hang on, let's do the math. That's 12 years. So he's out as well. Yeah, got released in 22. He didn't even do the full sentence. Now, what that says to me is they probably rolled on some people. So ultimately, after all of that, that's what you got. Now, an insane, unique proposition. There he is. Gotta love it. Something a little bit different to your average scam, but ultimately one of the largest scams just in American credit card fraud history was funding an esports organization vicariously just through one guy, and they all got caught, and they're all out now. And, you know, wonder if he's ever coming back to esports. I haven't heard from him, haven't seen him. Would love to do an interview with him. Be pretty funny, I think. We can do a couple of quick ones. This was a HUD classic from CS. I don't think people ever really understood just how bad this was. But you might remember there was the Bulgarian team. Does this happen because we's from Bulgaria? You remember those guys? And here they all are, right? And they made the decision to go to this event. They were called Wendigo. They don't have anyone right now, but can we have a look at former players? Is that possible? Does that exist? Yeah, here you go. So, you know, it was Spellin. You've heard of him. It was Ships. It was Bubble. It was Victor. It was Punisher. Remember him? He was good for a bit, wasn't he? And this is when they were kind of coming up and they were beating some tier 1 teams and people fucking respected them. And then in 2018, WESG got announced. WESG said, we're going to put together a prize pool of just shy of $1,890,000. Pretty crazy in 2018, frankly. And it overlapped with another better event. In 2019, at the start of 2019, what would it have been? Wouldn't have been E-League. But anyway, there was I remember watching this. Was it a major or an ESL event? Katowice? I don't know. But it did overlap with a better event. And so some teams trying to be slick, and they went, well, that's a smaller event, but with a bigger prize pool, so I'm going to go there. And look, Look at the talent that was there, first of all. What an event. Harry, Hugo, Stunner, Sponge, Vendetta, Tombiz. Anyway, let's have a look. Let's have a look at the... Wait a minute. It was that Fnatic. Fucking hell. That's kind of... What? Not going to lie. There were some good teams there. Maybe they weren't good in 2019. But still, big names. Look at that optic as well. Remember that? Remember the Danish optic? Team Russia. Crazy. Anyway, Wendigo won it. Look at them. Look at the results. Look at their insane path to victory. They beat Furious Gaming. Who the fuck are they? Right. Argentinians. Right. They beat Furious Gaming. They beat MABR. Wow, they beat the Brazilians. They beat the Brazilians. Oof. They beat G2. And then they beat AGO. I assume that's the Polish AGO. Yep. Furlan, Gruby, Sparrow. So, you know, they did really, really well to win that. And I remember at the time we were all laughing about it because everyone that was trying to cheese by going to this event to get this insane prize pool. And it went to the fucking Bulgarians of all fucking teams in attendance. I mean, look, it's the Mixwell fucking Alex, Lowell, Movistar riders as well. The French G2. So anyway, well done. You know, they won it. But then it turned out they never got paid. A year later, they were still chasing the money. And the mad thing is as well, the org, it wasn't really an org, it was a bedroom org, but still, it got closed down. They won that $500,000, and then they shut down the org 7 months later. So, and they still hadn't got their money. So let's do it. Let's just quickly read through this. The Bulgarian team, Wendigo, won $500,000 after topping the international tournament, but they've yet to see a dime. WESG claims bank regulation and the coronavirus outbreak have delayed the payment process. It wasn't even there, was it, in 20... refresh my memory, right? When did the pandemic start? It was 2020, right? Yeah. The tournament was a year prior. You've had plenty of time. I mean, obviously, when it came out of that lab in Wuhan, that was late 2019, right? We can say that now, yeah? Good. Just want to make sure. And I do remember that Anders brought it to Europe. He did. He 100% brought it to Europe. It's not even up for debate. He quite literally went to a wet market as well. He's mental. Like the last thing I'd want to do is like, I've got a day off at work. Let's go to a wet market, lads. Like, no, I'm good. I'm really good. Just saying. His symptoms were classic Delta wave COVID, and he flew home, infected everyone on that plane. It was a long flight. There was no escaping it. Infected everyone in Denmark he interacted with. So, just putting it all out there. Anyway, March 17th. By the way, this is written by Mira. I should stipulate he's back at HLTV now, but he was at Deserto for a time. March 17th, 2019 was the day that changed Bulgarian esports forever. I mean, yeah, it did actually. All joking aside. Wendigo, then ranked just 30th in the world, capped off a dream run at WESG 2018 finals with a 2-1 victory over Polish side AGO in the tournament finals after previously upsetting MIPR, who were then the world number 5, and G2, who were the world number 17. It was a day that will forever be etched into the memories of those players who won $500,000, the third largest prize in Counter-Strike history it was them. There they all are. Look, yeah! We're winning. We're doing it. It was also the day when things began to fall apart. 7 months later, Wendigo ceased all operations, citing cash flow issues, after not having received prize money from several tournaments, WESG included. It was a surprising announcement, though not because the team had been doing well. In the months that had followed that incredible run in Chongqing, Wendigo had been unable to cement their status as a top 20 side. A victory at Mosh XL Esports being the only positive as the team desperately attempted, or is that Moch? I don't know, whatever. I need to know the country to even intuit the pronunciation, wouldn't I? Fine. As they desperately attempted to challenge for a spot at the big boys table. As Wendigo closed their doors, the team were 40th in the world rankings, 27 places down from their peak position, and had just 3/5 of the WESG winning roster, with 4 different players having been tested as part of an organizational international experiment. But enough about the Wuhan lab. Anyway, Wendigo came out on Reddit and they said, we need the money. In order to keep the squad, we had to increase the salaries. We were lacking cash flow, and the main reason for that was the WESG prize. It was the largest prize our organisation had ever won. This would have been the cash flow that would have allowed us to stay in the game. He called out other tournament operators, E2 Tech, who ran the Merger, XL Esports, and ESL. Wow. Imagine ESL not paying out prize money. So, here we go. A representative from Alibaba, the Chinese company that is behind WESG, told the Esports Observer that its payment had been sent back multiple times. Both tournament organisers had run into the same problem, the bureaucratic nightmare caused by the fact that Wendigo's company registration, tax filing information, and receiving bank were from different countries. Yes, because we all know, quite famously, China, one of the financial capitals of the world, struggles with international banking. These problems are pretty normal for the CIS region when the legal address of the organisation is located in a different country, usually Hong Kong or Cyprus. In our case, it was Hong Kong. The management was working out of Ukraine, the players were based in Bulgaria and boot camped in Ukraine, and the funds were supposed to be sent from China. To overcome this hurdle, Wendigo created a new bank account, one that they assure has no issues with overseas remittances. By then, the organisation had already closed their doors, so all expenses came out of the old management's pockets. But new obstacles continued to emerge. First, it was the daily protests of hundreds of thousands of people in Hong Kong who demonstrated against the country's extradition bill. Remember that? Mr. Yermolayev says that this delayed the prize money payment, though he claims WESG never really explained why. And then the novel coronavirus emerged in the city of Wuhan, right out of that lab, bringing every sector of the Chinese economy to a halt. On January 22, WESG became the first tournament organiser to revise its strategy as a result of the ongoing health crisis, as it postponed the Asia-Pacific finals scheduled for February in Macau. The World Finals, which were due to be held in the first quarter of the year in China, had been postponed indefinitely, and there are doubts as to whether the event will ever take place. It didn't, as WESG remains tight-lipped about the future of the competition. Communication with WESG wasn't always easy or timely in the final months of 2019, but things got even worse after China entered a coronavirus lockdown. Wendigo claimed they were promised that the wire transfer would go ahead after February 24th, as banks in China were closed and staff members remained at home as part of the country's social distancing measures. That was part of their quite famous zero COVID protocols, where people got bolted into their fucking houses. But since that deadline expired, WESG has remained evasive when asked about updates. Vian, an Alibaba employee who's been the primary contact with Wendigo from the start, revealed in her latest email she remains on sick leave with limited email access until May 15th. We know the banks in China are open again, and we understand the company is functioning, even if some people are working remotely, Mr. Yermolayev says. He questions WESG's continuous requests for information and documents, including team contracts and a player payment guarantee letter, even after organisations had long received their prize money share, and insists that Wendigo have never seen proof of a payment attempt from the Chinese tournament organiser. It's a standard business practice to send a confirmation of payment. This way, even if there is some sort of a delay, we can approach our bank and explain to them the situation, and they can try to resolve the issue. Tired of waiting, Wendigo considered taking legal action against WESG. Here we go. This is the final statement. HLTV.org reached out to Vian, the Alibaba employee, with a set of questions regarding the prizes from the 2018 event. And this is what we got. We have been in constant communication with Wendigo to resolve the payment issues. Past issues were addressed in an announcement via Reddit on November 1st, 2019, so I'll focus this email on giving an update to the process during that time. During the month of November, we tried to make the bank transfer, but the payments did not pass the bank's compliance requirements. We received a request from Wendigo to change the beneficiary bank account on December 4th, which required additional paperwork to update bank details in agreements and invoices. WESG received all the updated information from Wendigo on January 4th. We followed up the payment immediately to resubmit all administrative work, including tax declarations and bank documents. Before January was over, the combination of Chinese New Year and the coronavirus, it was wicked how those two things converged, did not allow for enough time to process the payments again. And after we started returning to work, as Team Wendigo dissolved, the contract between the organisation and the players has expired and became legally invalid. In order to safeguard the right of the players, we requested the organisation's owner to provide a letter of commitment to ensure the players will be paid their prize money. We made this request on March 9th. We received this letter of commitment in the mail on April 8th. As the pandemic wears on, banks and corporations in China are not back to full operations yet in a mandated effort to reduce human contact and to avoid a second wave of infections. This has resulted in longer wait times to process payments, but we are working on a daily basis to follow up with the banks. So, I remember covering this on By the Numbers when it happened. This would have been going on, obviously, in 2020. So I would have been back in the UK by that point, and pretty sure we did talk about this. I remember I always had a working theory as well about how, like, it was super weird that, like, they won the money, said they needed the money, the org shut down, and then changed the banks, but no, we can't guarantee the players are going to get it directly, etc. There was always this idea that maybe somebody fucking at Wendigo, one of the managers maybe went, I'll be having that. But we never got to the bottom of it. All I know is, as far as I'm aware, to this day, I don't think those players ever got that prize money. Which is just crazy to think about. It was the third biggest prize win in CS history at that time. Probably never got paid out. So that has to be on the list. That was a crazy one. There's another one that's kind of similar, which I'll go through this one a bit quicker. But this is an interesting one because it involves Valve. And this is a report on Gosu Gamers from 5 years ago. It's in my favorite game of Dota 2. And this is about the GESC. And it's kind of funny, man, because, like, now that I'm starting to hang out more with the Dota guys and starting to hear more and more stuff, like, behind the scenes about, you know, people not being paid and crazy bullshit that's going on behind the scenes and all this stuff. I mean, T-Gov, he just got fucking accused of being a secret Valve developer by, like, Russia's biggest Dota streamer, like 2 days ago. And it's just crazy things happen over there, right? Like, it's actually crazy. And, you know, there's a lot of tournament operators that still owe money and stuff. And so let's cover this one, right? Let's get into this. This is the GESC. And the GESC was considered like it was going to be one of these, like, big tournaments, you know, big prize pool. You can see again, look what we're talking about here, 750K. And I'll read you this Gossip Gamers report just so you can see what it was. And it was meant to be a new face to the Dota 2 tournament scene, was GESC, and they've been slated to hold 4 events in the APAC region during the DPC 2017-2018 season. However, the minor schedule for Singapore January and the one in Malaysia March were both postponed indefinitely due to factors beyond our control. That meant there was only 2 events left, GESC Indonesia and GESC Thailand, in March and May, respectively. Besides postponement and eventual cancellation of the first 2 events, organisers received flack for the last-minute change in the SEA qualifier dates and format for GESC Thailand. TNC had taken a Twitter to express their frustration, while Maneski withdrew from participation. And so anyway, despite these bumps in the road, things seemed to get off without any more reported problems, and the organisers even had received praise for their events from prominent and trusted managers. Fast forward almost 6 months later, and it seems that the level of production and hosting didn't reflect the organisers' financial integrity and payment status. Stop me if you've heard this before. In an open letter penned by members of the Dota 2 professional scene, issues revolve around non-payment of more than $700,000 $750,000 pertaining to both GESC Indonesia and GESC Thailand, two Dota events that took place in March and May this year, as well as individual and group consultancy services provided since 2017. GESC reported to Gosu Gamers that they have no comment at this time, but we might release a short statement soon, and that statement never came. While Valve maintains a permissive free market approach, not holding any exclusivity rights to tournaments, anyone with money or a plan can submit a request to Valve for an in-game ticket and hold an online or LAN event. The process is relatively simple and open to all. The results can be detrimental to the players when an event is organized by someone with bad intentions looking to make a quick dollar or see their name in lights. And you can see it talks about some of these other events, other classics that didn't go well. And then, obviously, we get to this, and that is that Valve were taking legal action in a report, according to Esports, where the VP of Marketing, Doug Lombardi, who you know, has told the outlet Valve is moving forward and filing a lawsuit as of 2019 with the High Court of the Republic of Singapore to make sure that all of this money gets paid out. Now, so this is a very unique proposition because I've seen a lot of tournaments not pay out prize money down the years across multiple games. I've very rarely heard of a games. I don't think there's another instance I can think of off the top of my head of a games developer suing a tournament operator for non-payment. That's crazy. Because obviously with Riot, they run all the tournaments, so they do now anyway, at least, it's hermetically sealed. It would be on them, so they'd have to sue themselves. Well, Valve, they've always just let CS it's just there, just deal with it. Wild West for you motherfuckers. Dota, though, here we go. Like, actually, this was you came to us, you worked with us, you got your ticket, you got the event on the client. It was encouraged for people to view and watch and all this. So, yeah, we're going to fucking sue you. I have no idea how this one actually panned out. I don't even know if it has been resolved. It's very hard to find that lawsuit because it's registered in fucking Singapore. But I'd be very interested. I'm going to ask around and see if it ever did get resolved. Because $750K is nothing to be fucking sneezed at, is it? I'll also throw in this. I urge you to go and read this article if you haven't already. I wrote it. This is .esports.com. Inside the mind of the man who ran the worst CSGO event of all time. And this is, of course, Sasa Bulic. This is, of course, about Gamers Paradise and the whole debacle that happened there. Gaming Paradise, I should say. And ultimately, I ended up interviewing the guy who ran it and talking about everything that went wrong with it. And it's really funny. And by the way, this is what I mean about being washed now. I still had juice left in the tank back in 2016. I was still a good writer and just washed up now. But look at this. We don't have the money. We're still working on it. There is a plan. This is what Sasa Bulic tells me several minutes into what can only be described as an unintentional interview. The line might conjure a scene from a Martin Scorsese film, a close-up of a junkie with a long-sleeved t-shirt, nervously scratching the track marks on his arms while being interrogated by the local drug lord. Instead, Bulic is infamous for running perhaps the worst Counter-Strike Global Offensive event ever. Named Gaming Paradise, the irony completely unintentional, the Slovenian gaming event that ran from September 6th to 13th promised multiple competitive tournaments with a collected prize fund of more than $100,000, expenses covered by tournament hosts, and a chance to bring international esports to the coastal tourist town of Portoroz. If it sounded too good to be true, attendees could be forgiven for a momentary lapse in judgment. Not too long ago, esports had a deserved reputation for poorly run events and outright scams. At a 2012 event in India, attending players had their possessions stolen. But in 2016, most assumed storylines like this didn't happen anymore. Even if you've never run a tournament yourself, you can easily hire talented, experienced professionals to avoid the pitfalls and scandals of esports past. As such, Even the biggest organizations in the business show good faith to new tournament organizers. So this was a nightmare event. It was the worst event in CSGO. I'll read you this bit. It's always just funny to think about the delusional people you bump into in esports. The interview, which we conducted in October 2015, began with a lecture. I've been vocal about how bad Gaming Paradise have been on my weekly Counter-Strike show By the Numbers and at any other opportunity that presented itself. He told me I didn't know what I was talking about, even though I watched the whole thing unfold from afar and had multiple conversations with a number of the attendees. Almost nothing you assumed was true, Bulich said, and you assumed almost everything. I really can't wait to address all the issues you discussed. But it was hard not to assume the worst. Not only had the event been terribly run from start to finish, but shortly after it was over, things started to disappear from the internet. The official website went down and remains down to this day. According to Bulich, it was bombarded and crashed, and the forum was filled with viruses, so I kept it down. I suggested he just do a rollback to an earlier version of the site, but he claimed that he lost most of his team after the event, so nothing is easy anymore. Maybe we can put a simpler version of the site back up in a month, he said. That, of course, never happened. While these tech faults were happening, the company's official Facebook page also underwent some mysterious alterations. A contact phone number for Bulich, along with his actual name, was removed from the page. All that remained was a generic email. The owner of the page was listed as John Smith, which links to a Facebook page corresponding to this name, presumably used by Bulich. I asked why this information had disappeared and why he'd picked a generic alias to conduct all his business. He seemed confused. I chose my Skype name of John Smith 8 years ago when I made the account, Bulich claimed, saying he used it on all his private accounts, all with the same profile picture of a Cylon from Battlestar Galactica for privacy matters. We all know privacy is a big internet problem, he said. My identity was never hidden from this project. He then linked me to what he considered proof of transparency. These included a forum thread on Join Dota, where he was listed as Tsar Bulich, High Priest of the Gaming Resorts, and a Reddit thread where he responded to allegations that the event was a scam. The only problem, all his posts have mysteriously disappeared. Bulich seemed surprised by this. How's that even possible, he asked. I'd wager you deleted them, I replied. But my LinkedIn was on there, he said, providing me with a link. Same Cylon profile picture and a bunch of positions as a software developer. Absolutely no esports experience listed before he took the plunge with Gaming Paradise in September of 2014. Sure, it was clear this was an account he had used. Equally, it could be abandoned without little consequence. I just spoke with a PR manager, he followed up hastily, and he said he deleted his account because of all the flame he received in his inbox. I couldn't impress upon him how a few forum posts and a LinkedIn profile wasn't true transparency, so he moved on. This article bangs. Like, you've got to read it, guys. I might even just put it up on my Substack, because I'm pretty sure I own this. This is my intellectual property, and I never signed a contract saying anyone else has it. So we'll see. But anyway, I'll read you the last bit because it is fucking great. He had problems getting PCs and monitors for the event, right? And he said one of the transportations were cancelled at the last moment with no chance of replacement, so we had to choose to bring either PCs or monitors. Considering we had 10 144 hertz monitors and we knew how hard they are to find, we chose them. Teams we communicated with also told us that no tournament will be held without 10 of the same monitors. So I figured out it's easier to find PCs, delay the tournament, than it is to find monitors here at the event. Bulich said the team eventually made 20 PCs by using workstations we had on the venue, and we upgraded it with coolers and graphics cards. Some of those came from Bitcoin miners, but the delay of 12 hours proved to be fatal for the event. It was the worst decision ever on my side. I should not have been blackmailed into this and should take PCs and have no delays. He attributes the rumours about the PCs being stolen to the Na'vi management. I told some Na'vi guy about the transportation not coming, he said, but I didn't have time to put out a PR statement at that time. I guess they interpreted it badly and went public with it, which happened for all of this stuff. It was an unbelievable mess. To arrive at the conclusion that players should have had to play on different monitors is proof, if any additional were needed, that Bulic doesn't understand the importance of the competition itself. The players who attend these events aren't there for a holiday, and they aren't there to suck up disadvantages to their chances of winning because an event organizer dropped the ball. This is a recurring theme when amateurs come to do these tournaments. They end up like low-rent vanity projects, an excuse for an exclusive party with them at the centre, dishing out admittance and free drinks, while a supposed reason for the event's existence plays out in the background like a tawdry sideshow. Even with a fantasy this feeble, the reality fell well short. Despite projections that they'd sell tickets to as many as 3,000, Gaming Paradise barely managed 200 attendees. Those that did attend expected to be treated to chill-out areas with DJs playing live music. This was all cancelled as well. The stream numbers weren't great either, and the sale of the broadcasting rights were handled in typically unprofessional fashion. Despite the gaming resort's homepage being on Hitbox, if you remember those guys, the company did a deal with MLG for exclusive rights to the stream for an undisclosed amount, apparently covered by an NDA. The decision to not be on the leading streaming platform Twitch, coupled with little to no advertising, meant spectators at home were confused where they could even watch the event. Still, as bad an event as it was, what's truly important about the whole mess is that prize money wasn't paid out. As our conversation drew to a close, I asked why, if they'd raised $200,000 in investment, they hadn't thought to hold on to some of it to ensure they could pay out the money at the very least. I followed up with what plan was in place to pay out the money. And Bulic didn't want to speak about either point. We really tried to make this work. All of this you heard were just a few of the problems we faced. You realize you faced the problems because you were incompetent, right? I said. I wasn't feeling charitable. It was my first event, he said, and I still did much better than anybody around. At least we tried to make something good. I don't deny incompetence. I explained that in this industry, trying means very little. Anyone with an idea can try and do something, but every time such an endeavour fails, it hurts us all. It makes us look amateurish and drives potential sponsors and investors away. There were no sponsors involved, he continued, missing my point completely. So no damage was done to them. If we'd had sponsors, the project would have succeeded. That's the worst part of this. You can't really say that you failed because you didn't have sponsors, because it's your job to get the sponsors. But I'm new in gaming. I didn't have the right connections. Once I found out it was too late, I am a gamer and new on the global scale of esports business. Was everybody born learned and should not try? It's not my style. I would rather fail miserably and learn for the next time. Bulic certainly did manage to fail miserably. As the conversation ended, he made protestations that the community ripped us 10 times more than we deserved, and then he tried to compare the problems this event had to others in the industry, including a 2-hour power outage during an ESL event. It didn't wash. When he realised I was still unsympathetic, he tried to claim the interview was now off the record. I explained that isn't how things worked. He tried various angles on this one, saying that it'd be wrong of me to publish the words of someone who I thought was a bullshit artist, which of course I did, and I do. He never told me what the plan was to pay out the prize money, but it didn't matter. On December 15th, Gamers2, who had recruited the winning King Win team to the roster, released a statement saying that communications with gaming resorts had confirmed there would be no prize money paid out. Gaming resorts, according to the Post, held no assets and as such will be automatically declared bankrupt within the next 3 months, the statement said. Even if the case went to court, the team would never receive the prize money it was owed anyway. So read the whole thing. It was back when I could write, back when I cared, back when I wasn't burnt out, washed, whatever you want to call it. Hell of a story. But it did allude to the story I'm going to end on. For we could not talk about scams in esports without talking about the Indian Gaming Carnival, which indeed was the event that I mentioned back then. Where to begin? Probably worth just talking a little bit about India and its adjacency to esports and where we're at. And it's still kind of relevant in the CS community today, because obviously we did have Sky Esports, right? They cancelled some events. There's also some shit going on social media with some allegations being thrown out that kind of came across my table that I haven't had time to talk about. But let me tell you about India. I say this to someone that loves India. Obviously, I have Indian family. My godmother was Indian. I grew up around Indian people. I've talked about this many, many times on stream, so I don't need to like relitigate it and go over it again. But ultimately, India is a country with a lot of fucking problems, right? I mean, you know it, right? And the biggest problem pretty much stems from you've got this, okay, there's two things. You've got this huge disparity of wealth. Like very often, we went over this on stream just recently. I think it was like in 21 and 22, India produced the most billionaires in the world. It's a epicenter of entrepreneurship, pioneering technology, investment opportunity. They produce a lot of wealthy people, a lot of wealthy educated people, a lot of educated people that maybe don't go on to be wealthy in India, but like go around the world and use their expertise to get wealthy and to help promote companies in other countries. But it also has this insane disparity in wealth, and the poverty in India is like, first time you see poverty in India, you'll realize that your idea about poverty is a silly little, if you're a Westerner, it's a silly little Western notion that you've got, because you think it's the guy selling a big issue outside of a bus station. And then if you go to the, poorer areas of Mumbai, you'll see things that'll fucking break your heart and break your brain. You can't believe it could ever be like that. And yet you will then walk into you'll walk 20 minutes and you're in a glittering 5-star hotel, and it's just... It's just crazy. It's crazy. It's what makes India like a super intriguing and exciting country. It's got all this like untapped potential, But also it's got a lot of corruption and it's got a lot of greed. And it happens a lot in countries particularly where you have that disparity of wealth, and occasionally people, because of their excellence, will break through the lower echelons financially and then find themselves in positions of power, privilege, whatever terminology you want to use, because ultimately it's their opportunity to create generational wealth. The concept, by the way, in India, I'm sure many of you, I'm telling you things you already know, but just for those that don't, if you talk to a lot of Indian people, and the concept of generational wealth, I don't think I've met a group of people that the importance of generational wealth, I don't think I've met another group of people that it's as important to. Maybe I don't know, maybe some other Asian countries, but India, it's very important that when you have the opportunities, when you have the expertise, when you have the excellence, there's this pressure on you to cash in, and cash in as big as you possibly can. And so obviously along the way, people feeling that societal pressure might succumb to elements of corruption. They might do things that weren't necessarily in their nature, or some people are just greedy assholes, and we've got them the world over. Anyway, another thing about India that you probably know, pretty big fucking population. And what's interesting is the country gets more and more developed, and trickle-down economics, which probably isn't real, but let's pretend it is for a moment, is taking place, and their technology levels are rising and rising and rising. There's now a new aspirational middle class in India that wasn't there so much in the 80s, let's say, but it's certainly here and now, and they want technology, they want cool jobs, they want fucking cars, they want all of this shit that maybe their economic standing would have meant that it was denied to them. So it's this huge area of economic growth and marketing, and this is why people want to get into the Indian market, because of this emerging Indian middle class with the money to spend and the numbers through which to spend it. And so what you end up doing is, if you're in a business, let's say, that's obsessed with expansion into any country that has numbers of people that fit that bill, i.e. esports, You will always be looking to get into those countries. And what you do is you don't go there and put down the infrastructure. No, 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 no. You go there and you run a one-off event and you see if you can capitalize and get a foothold in it. The entire Optic India project, because I see some of you in the chat doing the word.exe stuff, but the entire Optic India project was the belief. The people that were running Optic at that time genuinely believed that if they created an esports team that was capable of winning for India and could sort of fly the flag proudly, they would tap into that market. They would dominate that market. They were getting in on the ground floor. But the problem was that isn't the ground floor. People have been trying to break the Indian market in esports for, like say, 15 years. We always knew big population, growing middle class, more and more people becoming aspirational, wanting computers, wanting technology, wanting this, wanting that. So that's what we're going to target. We did it in South America. We've done it with the Brazilian market. We're doing it in the Middle East right now. Remember how many overtures we made to the Middle East before Saudi became convinced to just buy everything as part of their Vision 2030 project? We held events all over the place in the Middle East. We've been really moving into that because of the same reasons. You've got this emerging young, very young countries, very young populations who want what the West has took for granted, and they've got the money and the drive to go and get it, and they're going to be a huge new audience for a product that has been tapering off and dying in the traditional markets. That's what's going on. So all of that is context that you need to know, because you might say to yourself, you might watch a Kit Boga video and scream "do not redeem" and all the silly little jokes, and you might think, well, of course an event in India was going to be a fucking scam. But this is the other problem that we've got. When there are partners you can trust in esports, and there are people that you can't. And people are going to have a fucking try at luring people in to get what they want. And this is essentially what happened with the Indian Gaming Carnival back in 2012. Where to begin? We can start with this. Moscow 5, ironically. This is the guy, Dididims. He's back. Right? he learned a valuable lesson here. HLTV.org spoke to Moscow 5 CEO Dimitris Semelier. Obviously, that's Smilyanet. That's SME, if you work for the US Justice Department. How was Moscow 5's trip to India Gaming Carnival? Atrocious enough to make the Moscow 5 boss fear for his players' safety and lives by the end of the event. It was clearly upset and shocked SME, HLTV.org spoke to when he was awaiting confirmation from the team's manager that the team had passed Delhi International Airport security gates. Moscow 5, who were one of the two international teams in India, reached the tournament semi-finals. That was when the organisers decided to shut down the entire event. The event itself was a disaster. It let people believe it would be one of the year's biggest spangled events, with well over $300,000 in the total prize pool for the featured games. Just to give you a little bit of context here. And I remember, obviously I was active at this point, This is like fucking 2012. This is like peak Richie Lewis years. I remember saying to people, probably shouldn't go to that one. It's not being run by a reputable tournament organizer. They're promising a lot. It's a really big prize pool. It kind of doesn't have that ring of truth and authenticity about it. But people take a look at the prize pool and they go, oh, you gotta go. You gotta go to this. And I talked to people that were at the event when they got back, and they said all these tables were like, they weren't even like school tables. They were like homemade, handcrafted tables, and they were all uneven and rickety. There was like no quality control. They weren't like commercially made tables. They were like, just built, and like everyone had different size tables and not enough space. And this was like a sheet. This was like this thing you're looking at here, I think, on top of the tables. The white surface apparently it was like cloth. It was like linen. It's like this stuff that's over on the chairs. And so the surface was a nightmare. There was a power cut, because of course that happened. I mean, also as well, I'll say the building, that's not up to code, is it? Let's be real. That looks like a condemned fucking building. But anyway, this is where they went, and that was where the event was. That was a photo, again, ironically, from Moscow 5. We can go in a little bit more. Reports just days before the event was scheduled to kick off even said the event had been cancelled. That was an absolute fucking banger. There was this fucked up miscommunication where, like, the official parties had, like, 2 people or something crazy. And basically, they were, like, saying, no, the event's been cancelled. But then the other guy was going, no, let them come. They must come, and then we can do something. We can make some money somehow. Please, we must run this event. I've got everything riding on it. But, yeah, so, anyway, the event had been cancelled because checks had bounced. And then later on, during the event, computer tournaments just got called off entirely. I'm pretty sure there was one tournament. I can't remember which game it was for. The CS tournament started. It might have been the StarCraft tournament. We're going to get to that in a second. But anyway, there was one tournament where I think competitors turned up and said, oh, we're not running that anymore. Sorry, you should have been told. And they're like, but I'm in India now? And they're like, yeah, our bad. Like, imagine flying to India for a tournament. Yeah, we cancelled it, mate. When? Probably when you were in the sky. My bad. Oh, here we go. Nice. Chases. Here you go. These are the tables without the covers before they got the linen on. And it's like, look at the chairs, dude. The chairs look like they've just been taken from, like, like a school, like, threw out a bunch of chairs. You know what I mean? So it was bad. It was a rough one. But, like, I'll just say this as well. Like, listen, these people that ran this event, I'm a bit more sympathetic because they're trying to source all of this stuff in a part of the world where they might not have had access to, like, you're not getting high-level gaming chairs in abundance. You're not getting high-level non-artisanal tables in abundance. So I'm just saying, but still, what was promised is not what was sold. Anyway, Smee confessed he should have listened to advice given by Fnatic and Na'Vi, who told him to drop the Indian event. Fnatic and Na'Vi managers told me, Dima, it's fake. Do not go to do not come. Do not visit the Indian Games Carnival of 2012. I should have listened to him, he wrote in his blog, unfortunately. Unironically, not the Moscow 5 website is down, sadly. We will not be reading that blog. Although, what if someone's archived it? Let's have a look. Ooh, is it archived? A delicious treat. Yeah, it's here. Oh my god. It's fucking hilarious. It's actually there. Oh, that's sick. Right, we'll read his blog in a moment. Yeah, these are the memes. The memes, oh my god. I can't believe I'm showing the memes. This was Copenhagen Games 2012. Apologies, Nomad. I am using an HLTV org photo briefly on the stream. I'm sorry. Please don't get me. But yeah, look, this was Copenhagen Games 2012. I was at that event, of course. And by the way, this is kind of embarrassing for, like, the professional sport, isn't it, in and of itself? And then it's like Indian Games Carnival 2012, big hit. Also, the way they've just got this guy walking through with his hands behind his back, like, it's so bad, dude. It's like such a fucking, just a fucking nightmare that they've done that. And then, oh no, the cosplay competition. No, oh god, there's a photo of the cosplay. The cosplay. Oh my god. Terrible. Anyway, this is Mr. Moscow 5's blog. What the fuck events equals what the fuck events? I think because maybe one of the organizing company was called WTF. Thanks God my team passed registration at Indian Airport and I can start speaking much louder. Honestly, I was really worried about guys' health and even their life regarding the latest news from Delhi. Actually, I just wanted to win the event and make my player wallet more heavy. But yesterday, the event was rapidly shutted down and organizers ran away. They hoped Moscow 5 will leave the tournament before finals, but I have bought new tickets, so they just turned off the electricity. Have you ever known a tournament organizer turn off the electric? We're just fucking done. Fuck this. Moscow 5 CS manager recorded all that Indian night carnival when he met Kushagra. He showed him the video and also recorded a conversation with him. Kushagra understood what has happened, that the video was important for his reputation. While Moscow 5 team was waiting taxi on the grass, 4 muscle guys, not gamers looking, was staying and watching at them. When hotel taxi came, those 4 got in car and followed M5CS. M5 players went to sleep, but the manager was making video and uploading it. After that, he fell asleep too. When guys woke up, they understood that cash money was stolen, an 8 GB memory stick was ejected from the camera and disappeared. Nothing else was taken. That stupid Kushagra and his helper Mukesh, the IGC organisers / rippers, really think it may save their ass. It will not. The esport community will know the truth. Remember, of course, this guy committing credit card fraud the whole fucking time. Committing credit card fraud the whole time while writing this. On Friday 13th, I'm going to make the live stream with M5CS manager Alexander Ovsyanko. The thing is that I don't want you to take pity of CS players. I want you to realise that India must be closed for esport forever. Just a fucking reasonable fucking reaction. We just got to close India, like. We just got to close. So we figure out what's going on. It's fucking crazy. Oh, mate. It's just too good, dude. Wow, esports, man. What a fucking time it was. Like, I can't explain to you. It was, you had to be there, you know? I want you to realise India must be closed for esport forever. Fnatic and Na'Vi managers told me, Dima, it's fake. Don't visit the Indian Gaming Carnival 2012. I should listen to them. Now I ask all esport community, listen to me. Please don't attend to any events in India. You may be fucked. Even in airport. The mafia may come to your room and fuck you sleeping. I cannot damage to Kushagra and Mukesh physically because I'm in Moscow, Russia, but I really want. I hope Indian pro gamers will do that for me. Fucking hell, I remembered it being good. Jesus Christ, what a classic. What a classic. Also, Jace found a walk around. I'm scared. I'm going to hope it's not crazy. I also don't speak Russian, so I don't know what anyone's saying. I mean, look! Look who it is! It's fucking Doja, bro! It's fucking Doja, bro!
Это снова мы. Рома, что ты думаешь по поводу этих калькуляторов, блядь?
Ужасно.
Это что? Это какой-то чехол или коврик под мышку. Вот на таких мониторах мы будем играть. Это не...
Вопрос на повестке дня, будет ли интернет?
Непонятно что. С интернетом пока проблема. Интернет на данный момент выглядит вот так.
Интернет.
Это даже не интернет, это то... тут еще даже питания нету.
I just can't handle it. I can't do it anymore. I'm gonna get out before we see. Oh wait, what is even happening here? Like, what is even happening? Doja's in the pool, of course. Whatever, fine. I've seen enough. It's good. It's all still there though. History preserved. Right. Anyway, despite all this, the India Gaming Carnival did take place, at least to some degree, but failed to an enormous extent to meet any of the expectations set by its organisers, of course called What the Fuck events, WTF events. Why did Moscow 5 not go any further than the semi-finals? According to Smee, the organisers decided to call off the entire event, shutting down the venue's electricity in the process. SME furthermore informed HLTV that event officials disappeared from the scene and refused to accept their calls. By the time the organisers shut down the event, the extended return tickets to Moscow purchased by SME turned out to be nothing but an additional expenditure, approximately $2,900. While all of this does not sound very life-threatening or the cause of fear for someone's life, it was when the team returned to the hotel their situation became even more suspicious. The team and their manager were waiting for a taxi to take them to the hotel after the shutdown. They spotted 4 thug-like men who were paying attention to them. After getting in the taxi, the Moscow 5 players saw the 4 men get in a car and follow them. The situation did not develop any further, and eventually the Russians went to sleep. However, Moscow 5's team manager stayed up and recorded this video, which is fucking deleted, sadly, explaining some of what they had gone through. Apparently, they were told the organisers had nothing to do with the event abruptly shutting down and that was out of their control, followed by several what seems to be empty promises. Kushigara, who was the director of What the Fuck Events, even told Moscow 5 they would be compensated with expenses involved for travelling to India and a substantial amount of the first place prize. More specific, the organisers offered to cover Moscow 5 $10,000 for their participation and reimburse $4,000 in travel expenses in return if they didn't publish footage of the venue before it was shut down. You can see they didn't keep that promise. The team had provided Kushigara with necessary contact information, hotel room numbers, emails, and telephone numbers, and he promised to meet them later that day, but he did not. This is not the only recording Moscow 5 made during their trip to India. They supposedly filmed a conversation with Kushigara himself, which is believed to be the reason for the thugs appearing. SME went on and said that when the team woke up, they realised someone had broken their rooms, robbed them of their money, and an 8GB memory stick with all of the said footage on it. And look at this. HLTV's coverage of the Indian Gaming Carnival is not over, as we have more breaking news to reveal. Doesn't even have a tab. I wonder what it was. Anyway, there were some other bits and pieces. It's going to be hard to top that fucking blog post, not going to lie. There were some other bits and pieces from the Indian Game Carnival. I went on Reddit and did some searches from people who might have attended, and I found there was a Battlefield 3 thread, and you can see here, this is, does anyone know about the Indian Gaming Carnival in 2012? And they're obviously talking about shit esports events. And you can see here it was a city close to Delhi in 2012. The only Western team not to skip the event was Moscow 5. But somebody here who's since deleted their account said, I was there with my team for BF3. We went to the venue, Battlefield 3 that is of course, and found nothing as far as setups are concerned. So we spent the whole day installing Battlefield 3 and setting up the atmosphere. When the systems arrived, we logged in and started downloads. This went till 4 or 5 p.m. in the evening, and then we were told that the tournament isn't happening. Me and my team prepared for hours daily, playing BF3 for months, and it was a slap in our faces. Every game of dreams of at least slightly touching the esports scene, and mine was shattered then and there. My teammates travelled from South India to Noida for this crap. I'm not sure about other games, but BF3 did not happen. We eventually went to Nodwin Gaming owner's house and had a party there and played BF3 and had fun along with the team which travelled from Thailand for this fiasco. And obviously Nodwin, they're obviously very vogue right now because they're involved with that Starladder acquisition and everything else. And there was another thing that I found. It was this on Reddit. This was on the StarCraft Reddit. A few weeks ago, I posted about the tournament that was to happen to promote esports in India. I was a free volunteer who spent $800 of my own money to go there and organise the StarCraft 2 part of the tournament. I didn't know I would be so disappointed. It was amazing the lengths these organisers went to fuck everything up. I had written a summary in our Facebook group about what happened, but I thought people here should know as well and tell the story behind the incompetent, arrogant assholes that ran this. I was heading up the StarCraft 2 and Battlefield 3 communities. Not a single thing was done for 3 days. They didn't have electricity or the internet at their place. This organizer, a retarded motherfucker, and his loonies come up and say, we are cancelling this, then organising, then cancelling. Fuck you, IGC. If you had to reduce money, you should do it. We went and ran a tournament completely out of a friend's place. This is the place. 14 PCs linked with the internet, and we ran the whole SC2 and BF3 tournament without their help. The head organizer and his loonies got 1.5 crores Indian money into the event, but apparently some gaming organization wasn't given the contract and went and informed the tax inspectors. They came promptly and seized all of What the Fuck's event's assets. Thus, there was no money. How could they save face? Getting in the shittiest tables. Those chairs were like someone did bad things to them, that you could say in 2012. You couldn't sit on them, and we ended up taking IGC's posters to use as tablecloth. On realising this, they could have cancelled it, but instead they ran an elaborate scheme to get in a local singer to provide some credibility. We went back to the event venue, and we waited to set up the internet on our own. Got in our own PCs, because, well, fuck, you can't play StarCraft 2 or Battlefield without the net. All we asked them was for electricity. No one wanted the money at that point towards the third day. What did they do? Ask us to leave the venue and organise it on our own. At that point, we decided to break ties, go to our friend's place and organise the whole thing. They got a hold of some networking guy who sat throughout the night to network the Dota PCs. Oh, they got in PCs. Half didn't have motherboards. The other half didn't have graphics cards. I went to the organizer to give help, but he kept saying, my brain is fried. I've been fucked over by the gamers. I can't listen to you or your problems. It was good that I was mature enough to hold my anger. Otherwise, the beating up would have happened much earlier. One of the loonies apparently got beaten up by people in the crowd and was hospitalized, or so they say. Oh, mate. Just what an absolute fucking shit show. And I also found this. It was a opinion piece about it on something called The Game Ministry. It was an article called The Indian Games Carnival, How to Kill Indian Esports in 3 Days. And let's just see here. Not much to tell you about day one. This is like a little diary thing, I guess, again, about Moscow 5. Not much to tell you about day one, since nothing really happened. Gamers... Oh, no, it's a general write-up. Gamers reached the event about 10 a.m., which was the official time for registrations, but they were told to wait until 1 p.m. With absolutely no choice at all, they had to wait at the main gate for around 3 hours in sizzling heat without any water or food. International teams like Moscow 5 were allowed to enter the premises, but were told to wait near the main gate. No special privileges. They sat on the boundaries of the road, seeking water. At about 1 p.m., the teams were allowed to come in. The first reaction, this is the worst setup ever. As soon as people started entering the arena, most of the gamers, along with their parents, asked for refunds. The venue had nothing but tables. No PCs set up, no consoles put up, nothing. People were so pissed off that they didn't want to participate at all. We also saw a few gamers got sick due to the extreme heat when waiting outdoors. Those who registered for respective games were told to wait for some more time since the venue had no power and the setup was not ready at all. After waiting for 4 to 5 hours, at about 6 p.m, the organisers announced that event won't happen today due to no power and management issues, and people were asked to leave the venue. The obvious anger resulted in disputes, and everyone started asking for refunds. In short, everyone had no choice but to leave the premises and went home disappointed. What happened to Honey Singh's concert? I'm guessing that's the singer. That was cancelled. Day 2. Delays, more delays. As usual, people reached the venue at around 11 in the morning and did nothing but wait. Games at Battlefield 3, StarCraft 2 were ripped off from the event, thanks to people like Akshat, I don't know who any of these people are, these are the people who organised that non-tournament, the non-official tournament at a different place. Well done, guys. Back in time. What the Fuck Events posted on their Facebook page that all the concerts and after parties are cancelled. The management at the venue told that there were some issues in the PC and the PC games will start later in the day. Consoles were set up and the tournament started. Games like Tekken and FIFA attracted many gamers. We asked one of the console gamers about the tournament and he told us, I'm here with my team to play Counter-Strike, but the only reason why I'm participating in console games is because I've got nothing to do and I'm bored of waiting. Talking about the food available at the venue, it costed way more than the usual. When we asked the people selling, they told us they had to pay a certain commission to the organisers, and it was very high. In order to deal with that, they had no other option but to sell items at a higher price. At least, PC games started at around 6 in the evening. There were around 160 PCs in the arena, but only 40 were used for the tournament. Why? Because almost 120 PCs had extreme low-end configurations and didn't even support Counter-Strike. That's Counter-Strike 1.6 with max FPS. The most shocking thing was done with our reporting team at the venue. The organisers called a few local thugs to threaten our team. They were really pissed off due to negative publicity done by us. Our team received a last warning and was told to write positive things about the event, which the team found out were barely any. Even after getting threatened by the management, we sent our team to the venue to cover the event, make people aware of the real facts. Console games were in full action, and we saw some of the Dota matches. Moscow 5, a professional Counter-Strike team from Russia, played their first match in 3 days and won easily. They were pissed off, and they had a valid reason. And it talks about the thugs again that we've already covered. We also received updates for a few of the winners in the game Street Fighter 4, Tekken, and FIFA. When asked about the prizes, the winners told that all they got was a big plastic check and the organisers promised to pay them the money within 2 weeks. CS matches went till morning, but later, around 5 in the morning, the power was cut off and computers started getting packed up. All the advertisement was removed. Organisers met the furious gamers and told them that the tournament cannot be finished now due to obvious issues and told them the prize money will be split up between all the teams. Let's hope the teams get paid. They did not get paid. Teams waiting for the prizes report that organisers are not even are not even responding to their calls. Is that another blog? Oh, it is, from Dima. Okay, cool. We'll end with that. Moscow 5 also reported the organisers promised to pay them travel and stay expenses, but now they've stopped returning their calls. All in all, the Indian Gaming Carnival spoiled the reputation of the Indian esports community all over the world and acted like a major disappointment. Participants spent huge amounts of money in terms of registration, travel, stay, and food, and got nothing in return. If they pay the prizes, then maybe they can turn all the publicity into a positive one. Gamers should wake up now and rise up, gamers, and should not just run behind prize money, but first investigate about each and every tournament. Don't be disappointed by IGC. Cheer up and prepare for the upcoming legit tournaments. We are already in touch with international teams and helping in every possible way. We will be announcing our plan on how to apologise to international teams as a united gaming community, and we wish to see top teams from other countries in future. And that did not happen, and that website is now closed. But here it is. Dima's blog. What's he say here? Fresh news from Moscow 5 in India. The organisers didn't cease to surprise till the last moment. In the playoffs, the Indian team, which twice has lost again in playoffs grid, but it is only a flowers. We need to play only a final when at night cut down light, all expelled on a lawn. Guy stayed on the street till 6 a.m. and at this time, it's like a fucking poem. And at this time inside, there was a room cleaning. Took out equipment, computers, disassembled tables, took out advertising. Organisers stopped to answer calls. Close at the morning appeared main org, declared that doesn't understand what happens. We kindly showed him videos and in passing fixed all his words on other camera. He promised to defray all our expenses and to pay us prize winning according to regulations. It is a little trusted organisers were already dishonoured, but if they deceived us, specific people with their faces on video, with names and surnames, will dazzle on the internet and Indian press all this spring. The shame will fall by your country, on your families, on your parents. It will already not to wash. So, in this trip down memory lane, as I said, I've seen lots of scams. I've seen lots of people cheating each other and lying and holding back the money and the bullshit and misrepresenting who they are and ranking competence that leads to impossible problem solving. And so ultimately, it's very hard to pick 5 scams and bullshit. But one thing I will say, the reason I left the Indian Gaming Carnival to last is it remains pretty much the biggest way a tournament can fail from start to finish. Competitions didn't complete. Venue didn't have electricity or internet or computers that could even play the games they advertised. Nobody got paid. All of the promised entertainment got cancelled. It remains pretty much the landmark of how fucked an esports event can be. And you'd like to think that by 2025, 13 years after the Indian Gaming Carnival or Indian Games Carnival, it couldn't be beat. That we would never see the like of that ever again. But it's esports, so you must never say never.